Right, there's so many individuals out of work and losing everything they got in a way, and you're helping them keep it.
Absolutely. And you know what, Joe? It's hard. It's hard for somebody to pick up the phone. It's hard for somebody to say, I need help, especially calling a lawyer. The last thing people want to do is reach out to a lawyer, whether they've never spoken to a lawyer before, they're worried, how much is this going to cost? But they put it off and put it off. And what I see is the problems are getting worse and worse. And a lot of the problems that I see boils down to credit cards. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said at the beginning of the year, I had some credit card debt, but I was managing it. And now, that number has doubled in only 1 year. And I think that's also because things are, we don't realize it, but they're so expensive. Necessities. I don't mean buying a high-line car or going on a fancy vacation. Nobody's doing that nowadays. Nobody's buying new clothes either. Going to the food store.
Yeah.
Where a family of four maybe had a food bill of $500 or $600 a month. Now that same bill is $1,000 a month. Somebody that was on a tight budget to begin with, that budget is even tighter now. So the last thing they want to do is say, oh, I'm going to call a lawyer so I can talk about this issue. And I realize that is so difficult. But what we do is, right now, we're not seeing people in the comfort and privacy of our offices. We're doing all of our appointments over the phone. I spend about 20 to 30 minutes talking about people's issues and their problems. At the end of the phone call, people say, oh my God, I wish I called sooner, and they feel better. They're always nervous about, the legal fees. That's the one thing they're nervous about. And they say, I thought it was going to be so much more. And for debt relief purposes, a lot of times our legal fees are actually less expensive than a new refrigerator. So we've talked to a lot of people. We've heard a lot of stories that people will get out of the valley and get into the peak of the mountain, and we're on our way. We're definitely on our way. There's a lot of good news out there as well to get us out of this pandemic.
What's going on with the law? When all this craziness started, you didn't have to worry about foreclosure or you didn't have to worry about paying rent. What's going on now?
The moratorium on evictions is actually going to be lifted on December the 31st. I mean, the municipal courts, for landlord-tenant courts, they're going to be packed. Of course, we can help people. We can help people try to make arrangements with their landlords. We can do so through Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The other thing that has been started is foreclosures. Bucks County, they were the first to resume foreclosures once again, and they did so in September. Montgomery County followed in October, and so did Delaware County. Now, Philadelphia is actually scheduled for January the 7th, and that is a massive foreclosure list. And in my opinion, there is no way the city will be able to get through that list all in one day. I think a lot of those sales are going to be continued just because, the sales, there has to be notice of a sale date. There's no way they're all going to happen in one day because so many have been pushed from March and then April, May, and so on, that they can't all happen in a month.
Brad, let me ask you a question. Can you stop a foreclosure?
Absolutely. We can stop a foreclosure in several different ways. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy, by imputing the automatic stay, that will stop a foreclosure proceeding. And what that does is that gives someone time to repay what they're behind on the mortgage. A lot of people that aren't even in foreclosure yet, and they've been talking to their mortgage company, trying to work something out. Maybe they're in a forbearance plan, which is not a forgiveness. Maybe they're in a forbearance plan with their mortgage company for 6 months or 9 months, and that's coming due. and there has not yet been an active foreclosure, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy can definitely help. And also, what a Chapter 13 bankruptcy does is it takes other debts, and we can reduce those other debts and allocate the money that would otherwise be paid to credit cards, personal loans, medical bills, what I kind of consider the bottom of the barrel of debts, and we can allocate that money to the priority, which would be the home, the car, the things that really matter, the things that we're actually out there working for. And we want to make sure our clients keep those things. Another thing we can do is we can file an emergency petition or a petition to stay mortgage foreclosure. And what we need to do that is legal or equitable grounds. And that's a petition that is filed with the court. That is a way to stop it. Another way to stop it is negotiation with the mortgage company. People are afraid to call lawyers. People are also afraid to reach out to their mortgage company and say, look, I went through tough times, but I want to keep my house. Kids live here. They go to school here. I redid the floors in the house. People don't want to leave. That's their main asset. That's what they work for. We help people that way as well. So there's a multitude of ways. And what it really depends on is the overall situation in law. They say the totality of the circumstances, which is basically a fancy way of saying it depends on the facts. It depends what somebody is going through.
Brad Sadek visiting with us from Sadek and Cooper. Of course, we'll talk with Pat Cooper, J-Doc on the other side. We'll come back on the other side. Brad, if you don't mind me asking you to just, and I don't mean for you to be repetitive, but I want you to put those dates out. All of a sudden, it's the holiday season. We're in December. December 31st and January 7th are like on the doorstep.
Yes, absolutely. So I think part of the issue is a lot of people have gone without paying rent, without paying their mortgage, and they've gotten accustomed to it. And it doesn't mean that they're saving money either. Mm-hmm. And, that money has been allocated to other things, food expense, maybe going to a big box store and getting electronics, maybe getting recreational or exercise equipment. So that money has been allocated elsewhere where otherwise it would have been earmarked to rent, to the mortgage. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they have to start paying their mortgage again or start paying their rent again. Otherwise, it's time to, get evicted or an ejectment action. And of course, we are available to stop that. But, that is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of people out there. Now, the good thing is a lot of our union clients are working, and that is wonderful, and that's the strength of the unions, how, they are working, and the unions out there looking for work for them. And, of course, maybe the overtime is not there. Maybe there have been some cuts here and there that have been felt. But a lot of our union clients have remained working, and, that's the great part about representing unions because, we're not starting with zero as far as debt relief goes. They have some sort of income, but what we try to do is just maximize that income, and make sure it's being allocated to their definitive needs, housing, car, etc.
Brad, if you would, I started the question, the status of the collection suits. We talked about a couple of the situations, foreclosures, repossessions, evictions, and collection losses. Where are we with what we haven't talked about?
Well, we actually get the docket on a daily basis and a monthly summary. And in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, so that would be collection efforts over $12,000. In October of 2020, it was around 100 cases. That's all. But then last month in November, that number ballooned to in excess of 500. So that's 5 times the amount of cases, collection cases that were filed. So the credit card companies, the personal loan companies, the collectors, they are starting to really come out of the woodwork and come out of the woodwork very, very quickly. And I think that is a product of people are reinventing themselves. People are going back to work in whatever capacity. So there's more incentive for those credit card and collection lawsuits to be filed. I mean, if we think about this, there was a time that we did this show and unemployment was hovering somewhere around 25%. Now it's at 8%. I think that's reflected in the numbers. That's more reason that people need our services. They need debt relief, and we welcome them to give us a call.
And so, Brad, your firm does a great job when it comes to debt relief and a lot of the financial matters. What are the common problems you see on a daily basis? And it almost seems like when you're talking money problems, the synergy between financial problems and divorce or family law, you talk about that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So somebody that has child support arrears, in the state of Pennsylvania and New Jersey as well, that can be garnished from a paycheck. So when somebody comes to me, that is usually a bankruptcy. And the reason why that is a bankruptcy, because child support is priority debt. So somebody who's $10,000, $12,000 behind in child support arrears, they can reorganize their debt and repay the child support arrears as a priority creditor. Also, somebody who is going through financial problems, maybe a couple split up because of financial problems, maybe I represent one spouse or the other, then goes down the hall to Pat for an eventual divorce. I always say debt relief and divorce go together like peanut butter and jelly. However, it doesn't taste as good. It's good for the client because they're familiar with us, they're familiar with our staff, and we're able to handle, life's largest problems that people face. Family issues and financial issues. The 2 F's, we'll say, so to speak.
Sure.
It's very, very common. So when you say what are the common financial problems that I'm seeing, foreclosures was our number one issue. It has been credit card lawsuits as of late. Our numbers in November were actually through the roof. We actually had to, before Thanksgiving, we had to put our brakes on how many new clients we had because we want to be able to serve the existing client base professionally as possible. And the last thing I would do is take too many clients and not be able to help all of them. Through the pandemic, people had time. They had more time than ever. They weren't taking their kids to soccer practice. They weren't taking them to school. They weren't going on vacation. They were afraid. I think people are going out more and they're getting adjusted to wearing face masks, but I think people had time. They had time to sit around the dining room table and finally say how much money is coming in and how much money is actually going out. And I think most of our new clients were those type of people that finally had the opportunity to say, we need to do something about this.
One of the things I was going to ask, and you answered that question, was how many clients do you and Pat represent across the board? And right now, during this difficult time, what we want people to know is that if they're in trouble, and it can be the worst type of stress imaginable, that there are answers. How often does somebody get on the phone with you in a very difficult situation and you can make their day end better than it started?
90% of the time. I would love to say we could help everybody that calls. The reality is we can't. But I think 90% in school is an A-, that's pretty good.